All right, we're live. This is the
All
first
right.
live. This is the first few good minutes of 2023 for me. Feeling good. Feeling really, excited about this conversation, and I know I'm not alone here. But I'm always excited to talk to Dan Miller, who I like to
We
call
don't
the.
do it enough.
What's that?
I said we don't do it enough. So yeah, I'm glad to be the first here.
Yeah, we're starting the year off right. We're starting with Dan, and I I don't know if I'm the only one, but more people should call you the Bot Father because you've been around. You've been at the forefront of all this stuff for years. How many years have you been working with, conversational AI, bots, call centers, speech technology, all that stuff?
Okay. Well, I mean, when you throw them all together and look at the precursors, it's longer than I want to talk about. So I started Opus Research in '86, and we were back then we were looking at what has evolved into these technologies, but it was intelligent network services and what we called telemedia, interactive services. Teletext to your TV and video text to all this stuff. But let's stop there. There's now a lot. Let's just say so. I didn't like the term bot father when you proposed it like 3 years ago because bot seemed like a derogatory term, and we were thinking, oh, we want to talk about virtual agents and virtual assistants and all that, but the world calls them bots, and I'm used to it. Back then I was thinking, oh, they're talking about spam bots and all these things. But I do get credit in some ways for coining the term conversational AI probably 10 years ago. And the idea of having elements of natural language understanding, analytics being applied to improve the conversations between people, between and among people, and between people and machines. Still doing it, but just getting better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, you posted this not too long ago, and this really shows your bona fides here.
Uh-oh.
This is yeah, I think this is circa 2016, right?
I think it was a little, right around there. And it was an Oracle thing where Pepper was walking around and giving me lessons on how to be a robot or bot.
Okay, awesome. And by the way, Kenny Lauer give you a shout out.
Yeah, hey, thanks.
Kenny is the man. Catch Kenny with Paul Greenberg on there. Make sure I get my screen back. Wait a minute, where am I? There.
You're a little inset. Oh, now there we go.
There we go. So Kenny is Paul Greenberg's co-host on Engage with Kenny and Paul.
Excellent.
Yeah, so definitely got to check that out. Look at that. We had Pepper in our office back in 2017.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So I want to kind of set the stage for the conversation. And please, anybody who's out there listening, we definitely want to involve you in this. Any thoughts, any questions, feel free to shoot them out there. Oh, look at this. Ray Gerber. You want to talk about journey orchestration? And there's your guy.
Yeah.
And Ray, are you still in South Africa? Let us know where you are. But thanks for chiming in here. All right. I want to start setting the stage with this I thought, really timely quote that I saw posted not too long ago. I think the speed of adoption and the creativity of large language models in generative AI will be stunning, with both good and bad outcomes to consider. Do you know who said that, Dan?
I think I stole my first line here. Yeah. And that's what we're getting down to is ChatGPT we think of as and we'll get into it. Is this the iPhone moment when everybody's walking around with a computer in their pocket, or is it the browser moment when you sort of harness the power of the network the underlying network, what's going on the internet, and make it accessible by giving sort of a graphic user interface to it. But what's really important is that within ChatGPT is this idea that you can, and right now it's chat, it's mostly text, but GPT, you got to remember, stands for generative pre-trained transformer. Yeah. So if you read it right to left and you turn transformer, which is, really, quite a technical description of a quantum leap in search technology that went from keyword to keyword with concept, informed by concept, doing transformations on sort of a query, and just call it transformational. So we're talking about a transformational technology. You take the P of pre-trained and say, that's like the biggest oxymoron there is right now, because we're depending on machine learning. And as people that are playing around with ChatGPT are learning, it's kind of interactive. You do your, you write in your own language, you chat in with what you're asking for, and you give it instructions, and it answers back. And then you can refine that and get different and perhaps better answers, but they are the product of pre-training. So it's kind of old stuff, but it's the product of machine learning. So it's capable of just staying, of being constantly trained. And that's sort of the next challenge, is how you make it relevant, how you make it contemporary, is to start with the pre-trained and keep the training going. And then generative is the threat to all of us creatives that we can take as threats. It generates, a response based on the instructions that are provided, and it's really impressive. Yeah. But it's not always accurate. It's unpredictable when it may just start making stuff up.
Well, I got some examples, actually. Okay. Let's one of the things that stood out to me when you mentioned the speed of adoption. Mm-hmm. It's I think it got 1 million people signed up in a week. Yep. And that was quicker than, like TikTok when they first came out. So you think about the speed of which they got to us, and the wildfire conversations and the valuations that are being thrown around.
Yes.
$29 billion for something that nobody even heard of like 6 months ago.
Well, and that's kind of inaccurate. The 29 billion would be a valuation for OpenAI. And as Brett Kinsella pointed out, it's a $9 billion jump over what the valuation was prior to the launch of ChatGPT. But it still begs the question, is it going to be worth $9 billion? And, the jury's out. But it's a testimony to how the venture community, the high expectations of the venture community are, and that this is a bright spot in the biggest downer period for tech firms that there's been. There's a talk of layoffs, there's all sorts of things going on, and here's like, something you can talk to, and it demonstrates its value right away. Although today I went on to just sort of play around with it and get some reminders, and it said that it wasn't available. It's over capacity right now. Which led me to say, I've never had that happen with Google. So.
and let's face it, there are a lot more people using Google than there are ChatGPT. Yeah. But one of the other things that caught my attention here, I wanted to hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So I literally went in and asked. I wanted to explain it in simple terms, and I found this kind of interesting.
Yeah,
they couldn't do it in simple terms, or at least when I asked at that particular time, they couldn't. So I asked later. All right, I'll drop the simple.
Right,
and you get a lot more. Maybe, and let's do it like this so people can see what's going on. So you do get, a pretty substantial answer. Natural language processing, people can read all that stuff, but I like the kind of the use cases that it identified as some of the better ways to use it. Customer service, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. Lead generation. personalized. See, and these are all really interesting and mostly in kind of the business terms. They're not really focusing on what I think a lot of people are using it for right now, is just asking trivial questions and
Yeah.
asking, write my term paper and things like that,
Right.
and write code, which apparently it can do all that. But
It
these
can
are
write code. It can
what?
debug code. Just some of the cool things I saw were you can ask it for terms to train other NLP things. So you could say, hey, come up with 400 synonyms for close my account or something like that.
Right.
And I mean, that's what's kind of seen as an existential threat to, where humans get involved in improving what any natural language, machine learning based system can do. But I think what's important to point out in what you just flashed there was it said ChatGPT is a tool. That's what we're talking about here. And then I was collecting metaphors, including my own, which was saying, hey, it's an invisible friend. It has the potential to be this resource that you say something that pops in your head and pose it to this engine or this tool and get some responses, and you can interact with it and eventually get answers that you want.
Yeah.
And my friend Doc Searles noted that somebody else was calling it a caddy. And so the analogy there is you're the golfer, but you have this companion, which is the other sort of like a specialized companion that can carry your clubs, can tell you which club to use, can, based on what it knows about you, and that kind of relates to personal use cases. I mean, yes, I'm interested in the use cases that will indeed be of value to enterprises, because I think that the engine, the business models are going to feed it are going to be within businesses, but part of a business's efforts to be C2B, not B2C. So
Yeah.
you put the tools closer to the customer, and they're gonna enter what they're looking for, and they're gonna have this intermediary that's Chat GPT based, and it doesn't have to be. There's a bunch of other firms out there. There's U.com. There's Jasper. There's a number of potentially smaller, more agile firms than Microsoft or Google that can take advantage of the investments that are being made in these large language models that only the big guys, the hyperscalers, can do. But it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm going to post this up there because I think, like probably most other people that are using it, a lot of people are asking questions to try to get information back. Not necessarily looking for a product or service. Or I see a lot of people talking about trivia. All right, so I literally did this. I asked, who are the leading thought leaders in CRM, and this is where we're going to talk about some of the issues I have with. Well, some of the issues I have with accuracy here. Now, of course, who's going to doubt Paul or Esteban or any of these folks other than that guy number 2? But when I look at this, first of all, I'm wondering, how did they come up with this list? What are the criteria? What's the information that is being fed to come up with this list? And when I look, and I love the fact that it has Paul and it puts in there the Godfather of CRM. I find that really cool that they picked up on it. For me, this stuff is not right. I have not written several books on CRM, and I haven't written one on the CRM handbook. I've written a lot of stuff, and it's been in some books, but I didn't do it. I didn't do that. That was actually Jill Deshay, which is luckily she's on this list. But first of all, you how accurate are these things? How much trust can you put in this stuff that's coming back? And I think that's going to be one of the main issues going forward, the accuracy of this stuff. It's great that it feeds back something, and there is a level of correctness here, because Paul, Esteban, Jill, Michael Mose, James Taylor, besides being a really great singer and songwriter. James Taylor. These are folks that you could say you could put on a list like that. But I want to go to this other list I found. Is it this one? Oops, that's not it. I asked about the people who are like the leaders in. I guess I didn't put this up there. That are leading the charge in conversational AI. And one of the folks that did come up with was Richard Socher. And literally today, literally like about an hour before we're doing this, I got an email from Richard Socher, and they were introducing UChat, which I haven't had a chance to look at this yet, but I have a pretty good suspicion, it's going to have a lot of similarities with what's going on with GPT chat and with Jasper and all these others, or Jarvis. I can't remember Jasper Jarvis. There's like a Jasper.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more like, so there's speculation and it's grounded and everything that Microsoft's gonna figure out how to integrate ChatGPT with Bing, and UChat is primarily search. So there is this demo of a system, that takes very seriously that a couple of things, because at our recent conference in New Orleans, I listed what the 5 biggest considerations in conversational AI in the enterprise are going to be, and the first one was that all commerce begins with search. And right now, if you're running a contact center and you're saying you're omni-channel or opti-channel or multi-channel or something like that, you're trying to track, quote, the customer journey, unquote, you realize that you have to zoom out, and that journey starts when somebody's thinking, I want to buy a car or something like that. And right now, they'll go to Google or Google Maps or, some flavor of Google to, put in, what are the cars I want in my price range, or I'm looking for an electric vehicle or what have you. And it's not particularly conversational, and the returns are in the blue links and all that sort of stuff. And UChat, would come up and say, no, that's not the model for search. You want, and Google's refined the sort of stuff you can put into that search box so that you can put in full sentences and stuff. But you don't have this expectation like you have, with ChatGPT or UChat, that, you can take the responses and say, no, that one, or how about in the New York metropolitan area, and all that sort of stuff, till you get the answer you want. And there's Nitin.
He agreed with me on the Botfather thing.
Thanks.
Absolutely. But yeah, searching is different than finding, and I saw
findings this intermediate step, or findings, receiving findings based on your search criteria, and then having sort of a conversational mechanism to, refine it. And search is just one use case where there's a powerful kind of front end, and you can have outcomes that are, hey, it found this thing for me. Or you can have an outcome that says, oh, I started out by saying I want to buy a Chevy Bolt in the Denver area, something I tried, and it gets you there. And Nitin, yes, the finding was not immediate, but the suggested the narrative answer. Because remember, the first generative AIs that were out there had names like narrative service. Now I'm losing the names, but there were 2, 3 of them, which were almost like the game where it would build. The ESPN was one of the big users. Narrative Arts, where it could look at the box score of a baseball game and it could write the article based on that. So you had sort of a fixed form you were getting. all the information from. And then you had these buzz phrases, if it was a large lead, it would say, the Guardians wallop the Orioles, and then puts the score in, and then figures out who the leading, who pitched and what their record was, who had the, most RBIs, blah, blah, blah. And it would write the story. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to address this statement here from Colin, but before I let you answer this, which is still finding it hard to demonstrate its value to senior leadership. So I want to play this clip from an upcoming episode of Engage with Paul and Kenny, where where they actually are talking about GPT with the guy who's heading up AI over at Disney, Dr. Bill Klein. And I want to hear this. I want you to hear this interaction. I also want to let Colin hear this interaction between Paul and Bill Klein on where the hype and where the real interest, where do they kind of meet, and how do you separate the hype from the reality of what can be done? So check this clip out, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. I always wanted to say that, on the other side.
The other side
that's happened in the world is that people have found a way to put so incredibly much data into those systems. We've hit this tipping point where those systems capture enough sophisticated patterns that they can do incredible things. We've seen those with things like GPT and now GPT chat from OpenAI that can speak to you like you're a real person. But not only can they speak to you, they can solve problems for you. You can ask them to write a piece of code for you. You can ask them to do your homework for you. You can ask them to write a poem for you or a song. We're entering kind of a new era of how that type of technology faces everyday people.
The hype drives me crazy about it. People are declaring it as the coming of a new messiah. The problem is the quality of the actual content it's producing stinks. Now, again, it's AI. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking to strip hype out. I asked it to write a poem or a rap song about New York, and in the style of Jay-Z, and then I did it in the style of Snoop Dogg, and in the style, like 4 styles. In that rap song about New York, they were using words like thee and thou. What kind of rap song is ever going to come out with thee and thou? Then I asked it to tell me about forecasting CRM in 2023. The first answer I got was actually the right one. It said, look, I'm an AI. I can't predict anything. Hit try again. All of a sudden, it started predicting all these things. And it took all these standard tropes about CRM and added the word more in front of them. It's just the idea of AI writing it, for whatever reason, made it wonderful. But the problem is the quality of the content itself.
There's a group of people who recognize it for what it is. It's not a system that can think. It's not a system that is sentient. It's not a system that is actually learning from you in the ways that we think about learning. It doesn't have cognition. So it can't solve problems on its own. What it's really good at is manipulating language. What it's also really good at is plagiarizing. For the first time, we're able to build AI systems that can actually converse in natural language. And now suddenly everybody's got access at their fingertips to something that you type in and it responds in a way that seems very, very reasonable, in a way that makes people imagine that it actually is real AI that really thinks. It's like a big illusion or a really cool card trick. There are ways to manipulate a tool like that to solve problems. And it's in those places that I think there's something really significant to be done right now.
All right. Now, well, there's a plug. And you saw Kenny Lauer in there. What did you think? That was to me, that was a really interesting interaction, because I could see both sides. And I think I feel the hype more than I'm feeling, some of the things with Bill Klein, but I can see where we could get to that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it still relates to the fact that it's a tool. It's a platform. It starts with a large language model that to Bill's point was you can characterize it as plagiarizing, but it is trained on all the knowledge that is out there. It is pre-trained, and it's always going to involve humans, because one of the things that the concern that Paul expressed is it's all crap. Well, if there's a role for intermediaries in an enterprise setting, to the same way they use human intervention for training the current web bots or chat bots or voice bots out there, is that the artificial intelligence, based on its experience and based on pairings, past pairings of stuff it gathered with successful responses, will make these suggestions. So where it's coming from is, oh, I tried this before and nobody said anything, so it's correct. Brent wrote the book on blah, blah, blah. If Brent were there to intervene, he would say, no, I didn't, and I won't suggest that again. But this gets to, is AI going to replace us and be our machine overlords, or is it creating new roles for people as you move it into the corporate setting? And the answer is, for right now, we talked, there's a lot of conversations going on about why OpenAI beat Google to the punch and put this, open Pandora's box and just put it out there for everybody to use, when Microsoft itself would know with what I pay or whatever, that if left on its own,
oh God, I remember it turned racist real quick.
Right. Yeah. So they know that for ethical reasons, for reasons of accuracy, you're going to want human intervention in crafting what the answer is in a corporate setting. And there's a couple of other reasons that have to do with explainability and I forget the other word, but transparency of where did these answers come from. And Bill said, oh, it's plagiarism. And the GPT-3, the precursor to both ChatGPT and now GPT-4, sort of proved this in spades, that there's a lot of and DALL-E, the image generating cousin of ChatGPT, has raised a lot of fuss, because if you say, hey, render a picture of me in the style of Van Gogh, and it goes and finds a bunch of stuff and does it, is it it's not original art, but back when, who ASCAP and BMI is, back in the music world when you started sampling, and right. Somebody had to sit there and say, oh, that came from, Gangsta's Paradise is an awful lot like Stevie Wonder's, Pastime Paradise. Right, yeah. And figuring out what the digital rights are going to be for all this. We're just starting to scratch the surface of that. Who gets paid for rendering these answers. It's funny that this came out of a question of, I'm having trouble demonstrating this, the value of this to management, but there's 2 or 3 really good use cases about accelerating the training of bots that you may already have in the works. And, right now, the big challenge among some of the leading edge firms who have implemented bots is, I did one for my mobile app. I did one for the web. That was a Q&A bot. The mobile app was a merchant. But how do I sort of consolidate to have a single source of truth or answer so that it renders appropriately, regardless of how somebody comes in initiates that conversation? And this is kind of the answer that there, there's a layer above just the sort of large language model that says, oh, how do I make it relevant to my business? And so that's about the industry and the common things that happen there. And then there's something above that is like, how do I make sure it's accurate in the setting of my specific business, which is the micro version of that. And that's where right now you really need human intervention just to make sure, because, Google knew this forever. And I think the ChatGPT people know it as well, because there's certain things it will not answer. You cannot make it get as racist as Tay or did. It won't go there because it's been told not to go there. The pre-trained model says, and that's that. And then the other thing is just there's use cases that make your customer care employees more efficient and faster to answer and sharing accurate answers and all that sort of thing. So
Yeah. No, I want to go back to Andy's question here. I guess, is that y'all? It must be
he
from the
did
South.
say y'all.
Do y'all think the quality or fidelity of the outputted content will increase exponentially or asymptotically? Wow.
I'm thinking, yeah.
You don't see that word every day. So
No, I love, so asymptotes are one of my favorite geometric functions. It just means that you get closer to your point of destination by having it, having the distance at each point, and you never get there.
But the funny thing is, using that word with y'all, you usually don't get that combination. But no, I like the question. And isn't that kind of the hope with the AI part of the ChatGPT is that, you get all the exponential growth in usage provides hopefully exponential, or at least growth in not just the amount of stuff, but hopefully the more accuracy of the stuff grows. I don't know if it grows as quickly, probably not. But it should get better as time goes on, as people use it more, as more interaction, more data comes into it, right?
Yeah, but what he's clarifying, he's saying what he's asking is, and Nitin has sort of interspersed in there that we're at the 8th grade level right now, but bear in mind that newspapers are written at a a 5th grade reading level. When I was a reporter, that's right for a 5th grader. So being up to 8th grade,
broader the audience, right? The broader the audience,
yeah,
able to read and comprehend it, the more papers you can sell. But is that jive with what we think about when it comes to AI?
Fidelity is an interesting word here. I don't actually know how to answer that. I think
that ChatGPT. No,
right. Well, so GPT-3 has demonstrated that by absorbing all of the world's knowledge, machine readable knowledge, or selectively and doing it and training on it, you can get pretty sophisticated. Now, if it's moving up to the point where, at this point we're just not going to get any better, that's kind of like all these discussions about how accurate is speech recognition right now, which we we haven't gotten to this point in our conversation about just saying, hey, this is all chat right now, but there's a lot of people poised to bring in the ASR and TTS elements so that you can almost you can do this conversationally speaking, and it's happening already. I'm not going to discount the work that's being done there, but when we looked at the accuracy of speech recognition, it was just in the past 3 years, and it happened in the space of 6 months that it went to faster processes and the deep neural networking and stuff, that the accuracy jumped to above human accuracy, so that the best speech recognition engines out there are not perfect, but they're not going to get any better, or they will get marginally better, but it's just not that important. The difference between 98 and 98.3 or whatever is from a practical standpoint in business, it just, you're already better than talking to me, because I'm not going to hear what you're saying. Some noise is going to interfere. My brain's going to be somewhere else, and I'm probably like at 80% when even in a conversation like this. So, So the accuracy of these things is it's like, how good is good enough, and it's approaching. Well, it's approaching good enough, but the reason it isn't good enough is that these other areas where it just makes, there's math involved, and if it's uncertain about an answer, but it wants to answer, and I'm treating it anthropomorphically, and I probably shouldn't. But in these areas of uncertainty, it's generative, and it'll generate something that isn't right. And like I said, I think for the time being, you want human intervention to minimize how often that happens. So, hey, and Dragon, naturally speaking, is still around. So it's not like something you have to remember.
So here's one of the things that I'm having an issue with all this. It feels like, and maybe this goes back to Nitton's 8th grade reporting, book report stuff. It feels like the way this is being used is give me something quick that I don't have to do on my own. And then that allows me to, most people, I shouldn't say most people. It feels like there's a lot of people wanting to use this to either get some stuff out without them having to do actual work or thought. And you should still be doing thought work alongside of this. But it feels like some of these people are using it as a replacement, not as a complement to what they should be doing.
Right.
And it feels like that's getting way ahead. Like the plagiarism comment. That's a pretty good comment, because a lot of school children apparently are doing just that, to the point where schools are saying you can't don't load that on your don't use that app, because it's being used in a way that I feel it was probably not intended to be used.
Yeah.
But when you give a great tool to humans, it could be a bad tool because of the human. Do you feel like some of the potential negatives may outstrip what I think are some really good positives in using services like this?
Yeah. I mean, they're going to coexist. And then it's up to people like you and me and Paul and Ralph here.
Ralph makes a great point about, could companies use this as a reason to lay people off?
No, to not lay people off. I mean, so actually, I had this emotional moment over dinner last night when I was talking about how excited I get about the natural language understanding in customer service settings. And my wife looked at me and said, "Can it fix Southwest's problems?" Southwest airline. And it was a brilliant question. It's sort of like, okay, I'm stumped. But if I synthesize what you were asking, will the every technology out there, and just remember that technologies just means that the tools we use for anything.
The enabler to allow us to do what we want to do.
Correct. And that they're used for good and bad at probably an equal amount. The bad seems to get a lot more intention and may have more money involved in it. I don't know. I've never seen a study about that. But the good isn't driven out by the bad. It persists when it does things like, hey, solve Southwest problem here. And part of that was a total system failure that dates back to how they orchestrated, how their planes flew, and that they had, I listened to a podcast about it this morning, so it's all very fresh in my mind. But, they actually, they put a premium on fast turnaround, which meant that they weren't going to do hub and spoke. And when they landed, they said, this plane's going to turn around in 10 minutes. So the pilots themselves helped clean the plane and stuff like that. And humans are a big part of humans and processes are a big part of making what works work. And technologies are supposed to come in and help that. And then when something like this, like ChatGPT or artificial intelligence encroaches on how we do things, there's going to be a bunch of people that say, I can use this to do the perfect crime. And, you could use it as a password generator. There's a bunch of, or I could actually use this to make people's lives better. And those do not drive the other out. So it's up to us.
I love this comment from Michael Klein. Shout out to Michael Klein. Thank you for joining us. I saw a comment recently. You're not in jeopardy of losing your job to AI, but you are in jeopardy of losing your job to someone using AI. That sounds like a winner right there. That sounds like that's the way it should be, because you shouldn't. I keep on thinking AI should not be a one-for-one replacement. It should be a complement to a human. I mean, there's going to be certain cases where, if it's very mundane or very the FAQ kind of stuff, you can see that happening. But really, the winning combination to me is offloading the mundane and allowing you to use what a human has, that it doesn't have on an AI system, which is that computing power, is humanity and empathy. I mean, there's still a room for that, right?
Oh yeah. And exactly what humans do well. I mean, we are sentient, we are emotional, we are empathetic and compassionate. But you can build effective AI systems, things that know, it's as basic as if somebody mentions suicide in a conversation, the AI knows not to give you a how-to, but to refer you to that's the that's just the cliche but I mean, for a lot of customer care settings, you can indeed feign empathy with a bot. And I don't know that that's what the statement that he just made about the risk isn't being replaced by a machine, but being replaced by somebody that knows how to use the machines better. That's absolutely right. And this gets down to how good the education systems have to be near, to build a talent pool for today's companies. It's just like, oh, don't just go learn to code. Yes, that's helpful. Get to know close to the metal what these machines are doing, but then, be like 5 layers above that and know what the machine, know what the machines do and what controls they're giving you, so you're better at doing the job that you're called to be. And that starts with reinventing what trade schools teach and all that sort of stuff. And we gotta do that.
So we have the kind of this general experiment that OpenAI is doing with ChatGPT. And I mean, you give the hats off to them for putting it out there, because they probably are probably overwhelmed with the response and reaction. But how does it go from that to really being able to have impact on the enterprise, on the relationship that enterprise has with its customers via, not only customer experience, but employee experience?
Right.
And because, and I think it was Jasper. I saw it on there. I'm so confused. It was Jasper and Jarvis. I think it's Jasper.
Jasper, probably.
Yeah, Jasper, where they said, well, that's kind of the way they kind of view it is, ChatGPT is kind of a general kind of thing, but for an enterprise to really put it into place, you have to have the domain expertise, the kind of the information that goes beyond the general discussion, the general interaction, general trivia, to really being able to impact specific customers, industries, customer bases, partnerships. And that is where these other potential systems kind of come into play. So what do you see as the future for not just ChatGPT, but this kind of tool, as you like to put it, in the enterprise, impacting the way customers and enterprises interact?
Yeah. I have two types of answers to that, and one just gets into, hey, OpenAI started out as an open source project, and stuff gets uploaded to GitHub, and it gets put in the hands of creative people who take the basic core software and build solutions around it. And we're at the early days of that, and that's going to be creating a cottage industry of its own. And the precursor, there's so many precursors in open source, but people forget that something like Apache, which all these there's Apache servers out there that are the engine for everything that's in these server farms that are doing all this stuff. And I know there's new generations of chips and code and everything to make it go faster, but GPT-3, Lambda, all the stuff that the hyperscalers have poured a lot of money into, it's under the expectation that the large language models are this rich source of all the world's knowledge that can go through these filters that then render properly in a way that's use case driven or business situation. Some just going to be personal stuff and help me lead my life better, and that's going to get very interesting. And some of it is in corporate settings to address specific business problems. So you think of these as key enabling technologies. That's something like the ChatGPT moment, which removes a lot of skepticism. I mean, it's going to raise a lot of issues about where it can go south, where it can go sideways, but it's in millions of people's hands, and everybody's read about it. Millions have used it, and it's a game changer. I try to avoid cliches, but it's a game changer because we've been exposed now. And when they talk about something going viral, this has the opportunity of removing some of the skepticism that this stuff is nowhere and there's nothing it can do. When you have high school students, asking it to write their essay about blah blah blah, and they can say it has to be 400 words and answer this question, and it's actually okay. I mean, contrary to what Paul was saying about it all sucks, it doesn't use the and thou unless you kind of triggered it to do something like that. And some of this stuff is at grade level, and it's not 8th grade. If you're in, you can say I'd like a master's thesis on the future, or master's thesis on James Joyce's Ulysses, and there's so much prior crap. It may just be as crappy and perfect as could fool somebody into it. So and that's going to create a whole industry around plagiarism detection. It already has, and we'll see. In unexpected ways, it will create new business opportunities, and in ideal ways, it'll actually make finding things, getting answers, performing commerce, finding that car in Denver, easier and faster and more conversational. So that's my optimistic look.
Well, I appreciate it. We don't have time to get into what happens when this thing is used with voice as opposed to chat, text chat. We'll leave that for another conversation.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not far away. So let's do that. Let's have a few good minutes, give us 3 months or something. And we'll visit the spoken aspect to this.
I'm assuming that's going to add some wrinkles to things when you're able to use your voice as opposed to type. Because a lot of people don't want to type, but a lot more people will use their voice. And what does that bring to the table? Be interesting to see. So last thing, and I think we're gonna pull from your buddy Pete Hedrick here. Does ChatGPT tell him if his Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl? I'm gonna answer before. I'm gonna say, sorry, Pete, I agree with Nitin. You don't even have to go to ChatGPT because that can't fix Jerry Jones. So sorry.
I just read something that the Super Bowl halftime show is going to feature an ad from FanDuel, which is live. They're going to ask Gronkowski to kick a 25-yard field goal, and you get to bet on whether he makes it or not. And I'm kind of thinking that you could ask ChatGPT, and it's on you whether you accept it or not. And same thing when you bet on the Cowboys on the Super Bowl. So
could
good luck.
Could you sue a bot if it tells you he'll get it and he doesn't?
This is like what happens when your self-driving car gets in an accident. What did you sign in advance?
All right. On that note, Dan, thanks again. Yeah, we'll do this again. This is great. And as Nitin said, we're kind of at the 8th grade book report level.
Yeah.
You're seeing with this.
Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment, Nitin.
Yeah, no, I think it's a true statement. This is still early days, so it'll be interesting to see. But he also said that the bot father definitely suits you. So
I'm gonna have a hat made.
Oh well, how can AI help Gronk? Now, God, we're doing like Meta. We're gonna do a commercial for something that happens at the Super Bowl. All right, I'm good with that. All right, I agree. Greg, thanks for joining us. I agree with Greg. This is great. I really enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking to you, so it's great. We're gonna do it again. Because I don't even know. Did we do anything last year? We saw each other a couple of times, but so we're gonna definitely do it more.
Yeah, not last year. I don't think we went on this last year, but the year before we did something from Dreamforce.
That's right. So we will definitely be doing more. Dan, thanks again, and good luck with the cross country transition.
Right. Next year actually next month from San Francisco. All righty.
All right. Take care. And thanks again for everybody checking us out. And I'll see you for a few good minutes next week. Talk to you later.